Hi Arnav, how are you doing there?
Hi, good. How are you?
I am good, Arnav, and you are a little master and a champion. Many students are there. Those are struggling into their own course, their own problem, their own inhibitions. What
Yeah.
is very different, which I found in you, that in the class 12th, you authored a book that is also, the book that is also the most difficult topic, very scary topic, the fearful topic that is called the quantum physics. So my first
Yeah.
question, Arnav, for the benefit of our audience and the viewers, can you give us your brief introduction?
Well, okay. My name's Arnav. I'm in 12th. I consider myself a writer. I've published one book. I'm working on my second book. It'll probably come out next month or after that. I've authored around six papers and I've co-authored two of them. All of them on quantum mechanics or theoretical physics.
Wonderful. So this is something very phenomenal and very rare, which we found that the students are into so many other things, but in this class, you thought of authoring a book or writing a book. So my first question is, how did you thought about the process and what really inspires you to write a book?
Uh, well, the way the book started was I started gathering all my thoughts and everything I knew about quantum mechanics in this tiny blue book. It was one of my school books. And I started writing down everything I knew. And eventually I had around like 200 pages almost. And I had 200 pages that my mom said we could compile it into a book.
Mhm.
So I started transferring it to like a Word document, which took a very long time. Uh, so if anyone's trying to write a book, I highly recommend doing it online in the beginning. So
Mhm.
I transferred it to Word document. I talked to publishers, and eventually it turned into a book.
Interesting. Share something about, about your parents, and especially, mother, father, or who is really the real inspiration for you to author a book, or even otherwise also in the life, whatever you really learn from them, and what is really helping you to upbringing, in such a way that you are an inspiration for others.
Yeah, they both support me on everything. They support me on everything I do. So I
Mhm.
when I decided to start this book, it's a big commitment because typing out a 400-page book takes a extremely long it takes a long time to actually write it down and then copy it into Word document and create images, talk to publishing companies. And my mom and dad have like supported me through the whole process. They've helped me with the illustrations. They've read through each and every manuscript. There were like six, seven manuscripts. So they've helped me throughout the whole process. They were a key part of it.
Interesting. Share something about in which class you are, which school you are studying, and my another important question is why only physics? And even in the physics, why only quantum physics?
Yeah, so I'm in Oak Ridge International, Hyderabad. I'm in the Newton branch. Uh, and the reason I got into physics, I started with physics, and it was because I liked how it explained the world around me.
Mhm.
It felt like a puzzle that I could put together in my head. Because things like puzzles bother me. They've always bothered me until I fix them and I put it together. They've always bothered me. I could never like leave them alone. And
Mhm.
physics always felt like something like that to me.
Mhm.
So I started off learning like little things, like if you throw something, how far would it travel? Or like what friction is. And slowly I got deeper into it as I started getting slightly better at what I was doing. Uh, and in like around sixth grade, I discovered quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And like instantly, I like a moth to a flame. I started researching what quantum mechanics was. I started studying papers and books. And I think the reason I still do it to this day is because it's a very unsolved field. It's very
Mhm.
new. Everything quantum mechanics is it's literally like a puzzle. We know a lot of things. We know generally where they're supposed to go, but we also have a lot of missing pieces
Mhm.
that we have to figure out how to put into the equation to find out what we're trying to find out. So I think that's probably why I got into quantum mechanics.
Mhm. What is quantum mechanics?
Quantum mechanics is a study of subatomic particles and how they interact and behave. So And a good way of thinking about it is it's basically a deeper understanding of chemistry. So you can think about chemistry as the reaction between two atoms or molecules.
Mm-hmm.
Quantum mechanics looks at why they react that way and why they behave the way they do, why they exist. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very deep-rooted questions that have been being researched for over 50 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've every year we get an inch closer to finding out the answer to those big questions.
Mhm. And now, when we talk about the origin of the human life or the life itself, biology gives its own definition. You know that we all emerged
Yeah.
from the water. We were aquatic. We were living in the water, and then there are the species like which was equally both living in water as well as on the land also,
Yeah.
right? And we call it in the sciences the amphibians. Right, and
Yeah.
physics is having its own, way of that they say that the two big, molecule come together, and that's for the beginning. What is your thought on this? How do you see to it? Is it really physics or chemistry or something, which biology really predicts?
So I definitely agree with the Darwin's view of evolution and how we came from water, multicellular organisms began to form. That's fine. From a physics point of view, what I've seen so far and what I've researched, I look at it from the perspective of the Big Bang. So way, way, way before, 13 billion years before what we're talking about today. So that was when there's this thing called the Big Bang that happened. It was uh, a good way of thinking about it is it was a melon. It was a melon shaped and sized ball of energy that eventually blew up and in milliseconds created hundreds and thousands of particles,
Hmm.
which clumped together because of all of these forces. So there's electrostatic, there's gravitational, there's electromagnetic. And because of these forces, they cling together. And as they cling together, more and more of more, and they become more and more complex. And eventually, over a period of 13.5 billion years, all of these tiny, tiny particles became bigger, became the Earth. And
Hmm.
they started interacting in a way which formed chemicals. They started
Hmm.
reacting with each other. And as they reacted with each other, they formed life, human life, not really human life. There
Any
was
life.
one particular cell that eventually evolved into a human being. So
Hmm.
when I think about evolution and the beginning of everything, I definitely think about the Big Bang.
Hmm. Very good. And this is what, the Big Bang, lot of experiments are going on. We know that a lot of laboratories are there where people are trying to do similar kind of experiment. And how do you think that that's really possible in the artificial way, the way people are seeing it to it?
Uh, People have been artificially trying to figure out whether these particles exist or not. That's the
Hmm.
biggest thing that's going on right now. Fun way of thinking about it is that it's the world's biggest like science experiment. It's
Hmm.
called the CERN Particle Collider or the Large Hadron Collider. It's in Sweden. And what it does is it accelerates really, really tiny particles
Yeah.
to pretty much the speed of light. And it clashes them together. And it checks whether there exist extra dimensions or new particles we've never seen before. So we're artificially recreating things that are happening in the universe and trying to observe what comes out of them. It's like having two cars and you don't know, you can't open up the cars, you can't check the engines, you can't check the parts.
Hmm.
So you crash them together and they break apart. So you can look at all of their parts
Yeah.
after they've crashed. That's basically what the particle accelerator does.
Yeah.
And I've actually been personally trying to replicate the particle accelerator for the past
Hmm.
4 years. Um, Me and my friends actually made a model of the particle accelerator.
Oh, wonderful.
Uh, so it's a 8 kilometer loop.
Hmm.
It's all coiled up, and it has 16 kilometers of copper wire. It's controlled by around 9 Arduinos,
Hmm.
and insane amount of batteries. It
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
around 20 car batteries. And we power this in such a way that we compress certain particles, usually electrons, because they're easier to. We use this thing called a CRT, a cathode ray gun,
Yeah.
or we try with hydrogen because we can produce hydrogen ourselves in school.
Yeah.
So we accelerate these particles to extremely high speeds, and we observe them on a tiny, like basically the end of it has a really strong sensor, and we use a sensor to observe these interactions of particles.
Mm-hmm.
We actually started this idea as a better way to research cancer or the cure to cancer,
Mm-hmm.
because in particle physics uh, there are these particles called the protons, and there's a therapy called the proton beam therapy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's used in treating cancer. It's much
Okay.
cheaper, it's much more efficient, and it doesn't actually hurt the human being. So that's how it started, and it's actually been going really well. We got to nationals in science. Uh,
Wonderful. Yeah.
yeah.
I heard that Mumbai, IIT Mumbai has done something, in the area of proton therapy for the cancer. Yeah.
Oh, actually, it's a very new thing.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
India, there's around two or three hospitals that have done it so far. So
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised to know that a college like that would try
Yeah.
something out.
Yeah, wonderful. Now coming to the important question, you come from Hyderabad, right, which is the
Yeah,
capital of Andhra Pradesh, and there is one more name there is now in the buzz. This is called Srikant Bola.
yeah,
You,
yeah,
you,
yeah.
you, you ever got an opportunity to meet him, interact with him, or something, or you heard about him?
I've definitely heard about him, but I've sadly never had the opportunity to meet him.
Uh-huh.
I respect him so much. He's such an inspiration. He went to MIT. He's an industrialist. He's
Yeah,
achieved amazing things.
yeah.
And I mean, uh, I'm also interested in business. So me and my friends have been starting startups, and we've been trying to get funding. And to
Uh-huh.
see how he's used his interests to like get a company and amassed over 150 crores of that company is just amazing.
Okay. What is your age, Arnav?
Right now I'm 16. I'm gonna
Uh,
turn 17 in October.
Okay, you're 16 and you are thinking to build up your startup now.
Yes.
Wonderful. Arnav, when, other students are there in the class 11, 12th, and the 10th, they face a lot of problem in understanding the physics, or maybe for that matter, any subject. And can
Yeah.
you give and share few tips for them so that they can really look the subject from different perspective, the way you are looking, or maybe the way Shrikant Bola has, experimented something and which has really exactly worked for him in the MIT or like this. So one of the inspiration, I can get, I heard about his entire story. When people were not accepting him, he faced a lot of
Yeah.
difficulties, and then he overcome upon all this, and now people
Yeah.
are, calling him on the shows and everything. He is the
Yeah.
inspiration.
Yeah. So physics is a very interesting subject. Uh, when you first start learning physics and you're not immediately like interested in it, and it's just something you're learning in school, it will
Mhm.
like beat you up a little bit. It'll take you some time to start adjusting to the idea of, oh, this is how this works and this is how this works.
Mhm.
But as you slowly start, if you progress through physics, trying to understand the actual concept and not looking at it as like a subject from school, and you start researching on your own and going like in depth into the subject, it definitely will feel more natural because it's a very
Mhm.
intuitive subject. Like when you throw something, you don't know this, but subconsciously you know how to throw it, so it'll go the furthest distance, right? And that there's a formula for that. You can, so basically, the formula states when you plug in 45 degrees into cos theta in the formula, the object that you're throwing travels the furthest distance. You don't know the cos 45. You don't know this. But
Mhm.
intuitively, when you do throw something and you try to throw it far, you throw it at a 45-degree angle around. To a human being, physics is supposed to be intuitive, and
Mhm.
maybe not the deeper versions of the subjects, but if it's like the CBSE textbook level, it is generally intuitive. And if you do show a little bit of interest, physics will definitely be way more interesting. It will
So
be really
I'm,
cool.
I'm, I'm now asking little granular question. Who made physics interesting to you, or what made interesting to you in the physics? What happened to you that at the moment, at the time, you really realize, yeah, this is something, I need to really explore more, and it has become, your area of interest and the topic to master on.
Uh, Physics in general as a topic, I've always been interested in. Since fourth grade, third grade, I've loved physics.
Mhm.
I got into quantum physics when I went to this class. It's called Young Geniuses. It's in the
Mhm.
Birla Planetarium. It's a sort of an internship. I did this when I was in maybe seventh or eighth grade.
Yeah.
I went to Birla Planetarium, and during the course, they were talking about supernovas. This is when the sun, basically the sun pushes outward, our sun or any star, and when gravity can't push it back in, it explodes at the end of its life in this
Mm.
huge burst called a supernova. And in the course, we talked about the particles and how they interact in the supernova, what actually happens at the core of it.
Mm.
And then it just like snapped, where I felt this interest with what these particles are and what they're doing. So at the end of the course, I asked the professor, I was like, do you recommend anything for this? And I got a book. I think I have it actually. Yeah, it's this book. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if the camera
Yeah,
can
yeah.
recognize it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's The Elegant Universe by Brian Greene.
Okay.
It's a book on quantum mechanics. It's the first book on physics I've ever read, quantum mechanics at least. And I
Mm.
fell in love with it almost like instantly.
Wonderful.
It,
So, Arnav, so out of, your entire day routine, how much time you would devote to physics only, and how much justice you do with other subjects like chemistry or mathematics or maybe other subjects? Yeah.
uh, for before, like during the holidays, I had holidays up until day before yesterday.
Mhm.
During the holidays, I dedicated a good 7 hours to quantum mechanics or quantum physics. I can't actually show it to you right now, but my walls around my room are actually scribbled in quantum mechanics.
Oh.
So I spent an extremely long time on quantum mechanics during the holidays, pretty much the whole day,
Mhm.
because I was interested in learning more about it, and I usually don't get opportunities such as like my holidays, like 1.5 month. So I spent pretty much the whole day. But now that I have school, I have 12th, I have to study for my boards and my college apps. I spend less time on it, but I definitely dedicate around 1.5 hour to quantum mechanics.
Yeah. So I remember my school days, I learned about this Darwin theory of evolution, right? The theory of existence of the survival of the fittest and all these theories. And then Rutherford atomic model. And after that, that
Yeah.
periodic table from hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, 208, all this. I do not know how
Yeah.
many are still there, which are unexplored and
I believe it's
unidentified.
108 to 118.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
it's,
the yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, you carry on, please. Yeah.
No, I was just saying it's 118, I believe.
Yeah. As of now, it's 118. Still, there's some more, which needs to be discovered or maybe identified or something.
The final few elements of the periodic table are actually not found yet. They
Mhm.
exist theoretically. So our math of these atoms and their electrons and how they work, it exists, but we haven't actually found them physically. And that's really cool about the periodic table.
Yeah. Someone who is really very weak in understanding, all these concepts of physics, chemistry, or maybe mathematics, sine theta, cosec, something, and what would you like to recommend to these students, the how they can really make these difficult in the complex concept, in the simple way. What are the few tricks and the techniques you would like to recommend to them?
Yeah. Uh, Personally, I've always been horrible at organic chemistry. So what I do is I do this thing that I call like the rabbit hole technique, and it's basically I look at a concept that's slightly related to what I'm studying, but in depth. So
Mhm.
it's not in my syllabus, and I slowly work back. So if I have like a reaction that I don't understand, and I don't understand like this tiny bit of it, I search up that bit of it, and then that search will have some questions. And I look back and I look back and back and back. And
Mhm.
eventually I understand the original theory much, much, much better and in like a much deeper sense than what I was generally supposed to learn from maybe school.
Mhm.
So that's what I do. And that's how I learned quantum mechanics. I started with this thing called string theory. It's a massive theory. And I started with string theory. And there were hundreds, thousands of things I didn't understand. So I wrote them down and I worked back slowly. And over like 4 years, I've gotten pretty good at it.
Super, very nice. So this is what you recommend to other students also to become.
Yeah. I definitely think they should start in depth and slowly work back based on their interests instead of like
Mhm.
shoving a bunch of stuff they don't understand or something they don't want
Yeah.
to learn.
Interesting. So, Arnav, what is your daily routine? How much time you spend on television, watching movies, watching all this cringe content and the dancers and all these fashion models and all this, and share something about that. Along with this, share your recommendations also if somebody is really preparing for IIT, JEE or something.
Okay. My daily routine is I usually get up around 6:45. My bus arrives at 7:45. So I have like an hour to prepare. So I have these things called to-do lists. So it I basically take a canvas, I cut it up into equal fours, and I
Mhm.
put sticky notes on it. So I'll actually show it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
I always have them on hand. So it looks something like this.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so it's my to-do list.
Oh,
So it has four
interesting.
sections.
Yeah.
Yeah, so each section is to remember, etc., and buy. So I have things I want to do, I have things I want to remember, things I want to buy, and extra things. So I
Mhm.
write them down as I go, like throughout my day. And every morning when I wake up at like 6:45, I usually review it. So I go through everything, like it's like a checklist. So I
Mhm.
go through that, and then I have school till 3:30. I come home, and then I have swimming training lessons. So after swimming, I usually start studying, and I study till like 11:30. And then I work on my own, like my books or my papers, quantum mechanics for around 1 hour. And I usually go to bed. That's usually my timetable, pretty much.
Okay, so no time for the watching television, movies, and other thing.
I take breaks here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love filmmaking. I've always wanted to do filmmaking. I've loved art like throughout my life, because my grandfather's an artist. So I've been exposed to art all my life. So I
Uh-huh.
still paint, I still draw, I maintain sketchbooks. I have around like 15 sketchbooks from the last like 3 years.
Oh,
So I still draw, paint. I love filmmaking. I always try to like film something. And I love watching movies. I love watching movies like I loved Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is one of my favorite movies.
yeah.
La La Land is one of my favorite movies. And uh these movies are they're filmed uh, in such an organized way with so many tiny details. It's really
Yeah.
interesting, and I do watch movies, but in its 12th now, I don't really have that much time. I used to though.
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
Yeah.
What are your hobbies apart from studying and other things and the drawing and whatever you said, the filmmaking?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I swim. I play tennis.
Okay.
Painting's always been a big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it sounds different now, but then writing was always my hobby. I always wrote. I wrote down everything. I have hundreds and hundreds of notebooks of just daily life.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've like published things, it doesn't sound like a hobby, but it has always been my hobby. Uh, I I film make. I love organizing things. It's like a little
Mm-hmm.
thing. Everything in my room is organized,
Yeah.
so
Who is
everything is
your
like at arm's reach.
who is your favorite Telugu hero or something, Indian movie hero, something you
I I don't watch
okay.
Telugu at all.
Okay.
I've watched two like Hindi movies, and that's Zindagi Na Milega Dobara. I love
Uh,
that movie. The Idiots. Those are
okay.
like my two favorite. But that's
Interesting.
pretty much all I've watched in Hindi and Telugu.
Yeah. And what is your favorite food you would love to always, have?
There's so many answers. Uh, Generally my favorite it's Italian. Anything Italian is my favorite. I also love cooking. I cook all my meals. I try to cook all my meals.
Oh,
So yeah. So I love lasagna, I love ratatouille, and I love ravioli. So there's like my three favorite Italian.
these are the
I
alien
cook,
words for me. I am unable to understand what these dishes are. But interesting, good. I'll explore more about, all these dishes, maybe probably whenever visiting to this country like Italy and something, I'd love to,
yeah,
explore the
sure.
new foods. Yeah. So what I feel, Arnav, that if you don't, experiment with them, don't try them, the taste bud will not develop in you. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
that's what which is the important thing. Arnav, whom would you like to meet in the future if suppose the opportunity is given to you?
Okay, that's interesting. Um, right now, I'd love to meet any physicist from CERN who work at CERN. Uh, I'd love to meet Miyachukaku. He's a physicist. not at CERN, but he's made he's one of the founding fathers of string theory. He worked on string theory in the beginning, and I'd love to meet him. Uh, yeah, it's definitely people like that, and I'd also love to meet authors, different authors from different books. There's an author called Murakami. Uh, he wrote books like The Wild Sheep Chase and Norwegian Woods. It's not on physics. It's more they're just stories. They're really really long stories, and I've
Hmm.
always loved. So I'd love to meet authors or physicists, artists as well. My
Interesting.
favorite artist is Tom Sachs.
Hmm.
He's from New York, and I'd love to meet Tom Sachs. Most of my art is inspired by Tom Sachs.
Very nice. Which country would you love to visit?
I have a very specific answer. It's Prague, Czech Republic,
Okay.
and it's mostly for the culture. I love the culture of Prague, the food, the way everything's presented. It's awesome, and I'd love to visit it. And the second is New York. New
Hmm.
York is one of those like dream places. I'd love to. I've always wanted to live in New York. Just
Okay.
the atmosphere of New York is really inspiring. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely in New York and Prague.
Yeah. Arnav, I don't know how many people you really inspires with your book, and we are eagerly waiting for your next book also to come, right? And what is the topic? And this next book is on the quantum physics only or something else?
It is on quantum physics. It's a little more in-depth. And this with the first book, I made it more of a introduction. It's kind of like a textbook. It doesn't have a story to it, right? You can read through it and you can be an amateur in quantum physics.
Mm-hmm.
The second book, I took inspiration from Hitchhiker's Guide Through the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
It's called A Physicist's Guide Through the Quantum Realm. And it's a book where it's phrased like a story where I navigate through all the basic realms of quantum physics. So I cover how these particles first came to be and how they started existing, how they
Yeah.
started interacting in the second chapter. The chapter is what are all the forces that work and what's the interplay between them. So that's
Mm-hmm.
basically the second. It's like a little travel through.
So when you sleep in the night, do you see the dreams of all this quantum physics and these molecules and atoms are coming together and boson and these things are happening?
Generally, my if I'm talking about my dreams, they're usually just like really vivid colors or stuff like that. But I don't usually remember them. So, but no, I
Okay.
don't dream about quantum physics.
Yeah.
I leave it at the door.
Yeah. Are now interesting or anything you would like to share to our viewers and the audience? Anything, whatever comes to your mind and you feel that's important for them to know?
Um, I definitely think it's kind of controversial, but I definitely think you should leave school behind to some extent and focus on what you're interested in. Because what I've experienced so far, like with me just in CBSC and learning CBSE, it doesn't foster your own interests. It You memorize a bunch of things, maybe you understand them, maybe you don't, and then there's exams. But I definitely recommend finding what you're like passionate about or what you're actually interested in. Something like quantum mechanics and art for me could be something completely different for you, and I definitely recommend exploring them because I mean you'll never get another like a better chance or more time to do something like this than now.
Yeah. Interesting. How to find a passion, Barnav?
uh I mean, it could either be very intuitive and you just find it one day and it just like comes to you, or you're just naturally good at something, or
Mm.
it just comes through like trial and error. So
Mhm.
it was kind of trial and error for me. So I never swam much. I never played tennis, but
Mhm.
I tried hundreds of sports. I tried everything. Tried like hockey, skating, everything. And eventually I found out that I like tennis. I like swimming. So it's stuff like that. With physics, I always thought I was interested in astrophysics. Eventually, I started exploring quantum physics more, and I realized, well, I like this more. I prefer this to astrophysics. So it's either trial and error if they're not sure about what they're actually passionate about, or if it's something very intuitive, I recommend following that intuition because it always works out well.
Mhm. Interesting. And now last question. Does this passion changes over a period of time?
Personally, for me, I don't think so because I've been doing this for since I was in fourth grade.
Yeah.
Right? But for a lot of people, yeah, they get sick of what they're doing eventually, right? And
Mhm.
that's not like a bad thing, definitely not, because then you get to pick up something new and you get to explore something completely different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sometimes passions fade, but I think for me personally, I don't think so.
Interesting.
Not that
Arnav,
lie somehow figured out the puzzle that I've been trying to figure out.
Arnav, thank you so much for sharing all those insights and wish you all the best for your career, for your future, for your studies, and much more new invention than the books. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
And
having me.
yeah,
Really
love to
fun.
have you on the physical podcast with you sometime, maybe in the future. We'll
Sure,
find out an opportunity whenever you're around to Bangalore somewhere. Yeah.
sure.
And keep it
Yeah.
up. Really, you are an inspiration for many students and keep doing good work.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.